So yesterday we discussed about working with directives. I given an overview on directives. How do we deal with directives? So we learned about technically working with structural directive. So in the directives, what we learned in the last session was about all these component directives and structural directives. Yeah. After understanding basic data binding, we started about handling a directive concept. So working with directives. So few important options we learned related to directives. One is general how to work with ng-if directive. In your workspace, Bootstrap is not working. That is your question. We will see towards the end. I will check once. Right. Fine. Okay, so let's see how we can configure and work with the directives. I given some points about directives and structural directives. I told you how do we deal with structural directives. And yesterday's session, we learned about how to use ng-if directive. So what is ng-if and how to use that ng-if directive? One example we learned. Now, one more basic syntax you need to understand about ng-if is we can use ng-if with else, then, and else blocks. How you can use ng-if with then and else block. Actually, traditionally in the scripting languages, when we are using a condition, so we have condition true, what action to perform, condition false, what action to perform. Now in our yesterday's example, we used this ng-if directive to switch between the DOM element, on and off the element. So that means you can add any element, remove element from the DOM hierarchy. So in this, we used a simple if, and if the condition is true, then it will handle this one. Actually, technically, the basic syntax for a if condition in the UI actually is if you have a condition and a keyword then. So, and you need to define statement if true. And we have else, and statement if false, like this. Technically, we have then and else blocks to configure. Actually, then contains the block that executes when condition is true. Else contains the block that contains the statement if condition is false. That is the general thing actually. Now, when you are working with the templates, working with ngIf, actually ngIf is adding and removing an element from DOM. When it is adding and removing element from DOM, one complexity will come. So one regular issue will come. The issue is nothing but if you add an element into the DOM hierarchy, then obviously it is going to disturb the hierarchy. For example, when we are designing our HTML page, and here we have some contents. Suppose we have one container here. There is a div here. And beside that, so below that we have some paragraph, some another container here, some paragraph. And below that, so we have some another div here. So we are displaying multiple like that. So we are having some other div here. Now suddenly by using ngIf, you are removing this paragraph. Suddenly you are removing this paragraph from the hierarchy. Now when you suddenly remove that paragraph, don't you think it will disturb the complete alignments? And it will disturb the complete hierarchy of the DOM element. What do you say? That means adding a new element or removing an element. Obviously, it will disturb the DOM hierarchy. Am I right? Yes. So the point is, then we need some containers. We need some containers which will not affect the DOM, but can display your content in the page. That means instead of using HTML containers, you can use Angular containers. Angular containers can handle your interactions dynamically. Can handle your interactions dynamically without affecting the DOM structure. So Angular provides several containers. Like Angular comes with several containers, like we have ng template is a container. ng template is a container. We have ng container. So what is difference between ng template and ng container? You are going to understand in next levels one by one. Actually, these are Angular containers. What is the purpose of these Angular containers? Without generating any new HTML element, they will add your content dynamically into it. This will reduce the DOM, affecting the DOM structure. And it makes better when you are presenting anything dynamically. So we can use this ng template and ng containers, but they have certain limitations. What are those limitations? We will see what is template and what is container. Basic difference between template and container is template can hold some content. It can just hold some content. Container can perform various interactions on that content, like looping, like conditions. It can handle various interactions. With examples later, we will see one by one, so no need to worry about it. ng template is just to hold your content. It is good in holding your content, which you can on and off. You can add and remove. Let's see that how we can use that. Technically, when we are designing this. So this is one div. I'm creating another div here, and class as row. Okay. And here we will see how to handle conditions. So I'm defining a div. This div contains the basic attributes. So what are the attributes here? Let's keep here. So below the div, two containers I want. ng template is a container. Okay, in this ng template, for this ng template, I am adding an ID. Reference, we are defining hash. This is then block. So here we are defining a statement if true. I am writing another block, ng template, another block. This is having an ID. We can access hash. This is else block. You can give any name. That is just a reference. And this contains statement if false. Actually, we will put some data to display there. What to display when condition true. So that means display if true. Display if true. And this is display if false. Now we need to write a condition here. At the top, you observe carefully. This ng template, display if true, display if false. Let's open the design. Let's access this and see here. So I'm configuring localhost 4200. And you can see here, nothing is there below to show you. That means these templates have nothing to show you. You can see there is nothing. Let's open the page source, inspect element. And you see here, so below we have a row, and these two containers are present. You can see two containers are present. That content is not included. That's good. That means two containers are there, but content is not included. We can keep the content, so according to our requirements. So we will write a condition here. That means above I'm adding a div here, ng if. If true, then what should happen? If true, we need to get the then block. That means in the quotes we have to write semicolon. If true, condition is true, then we have to write then. Then we have to access then block ID. Then block ID is then block. We are accessing the then block. That's how we define. And else block, that means space else. We have to write else block. That is how generally we write is if condition in the UI. That means if the condition true, then block will display. If condition is false, then else block will display. Remember, this then block, else block are our own IDs. We can give any ID. We can define and configure any ID. So I am just giving reasonable then block and else block like ID here. And below you can see it says display if true. It shows display if true. And you can see that in the container, only you can observe carefully, it will display that as a normal text. It will display as normal text, right? That is CSS class. Class row is a CSS class. It's a bootstrap class. You know bootstrapper, Prakash? It is a bootstrap class which is used to organize data in rows and columns. For that, you need to know actually bootstrap, HTML, CSS, bootstrap. That is a bootstrap class. Row is a bootstrap class which organizes information into rows and columns. And you see here, display true. Display true is there. Display true is there. And without any container here, like there is no div, no span, it is used as a literal text. Literal text. Okay. Now I will go here and I will change it. This ng if as false. If it is false, then else block should execute. And you see that. So display if false, that else block is coming here. Automatically it will bringing it to top and displaying at that position. You don't need to worry which one is above, which one is below. So they will they display above and below? They will just display in that particular place. They automatically display in the page according to the condition. If false, then false block will execute. If true, true block will execute. That means you can write the if by using if and else blocks. So according to the situation, we can display which block we want. If true, then one block that is defined by using then block. That means syntactically how we use, means syntactically else and other blocks how we define actually. So what we do is we generally use an ng if and condition and semicolon. We have to write then and then block ID and else block ID. Else block ID. We have to write in this way. We need to configure in this way. And below that, we use containers. Actually, we can use divs or spans. But using the divs and spans will disturb the alignment of your document. That's the reason we use here ng template. And it will have an ID, then block ID. This is then block ID. Then block ID. And what should be inside this template? Means content to display when true. When true. That is one ng template. We have to add that template. Another ng template. This is for else block ID. This is else block ID. And it should display content. So content to display. So when false and ng template like this. That is the basic approach how we define the if and else. Dynamically how we configure. Yeah. This hash any name. So if you are not defining, how you will directly access the first block or second block? If there is no ID, then how you will access? Abhilash, don't you think we need an ID reference for that? Right? Generally, this is not what you are writing there is you are saying that ID is equal to hash. It is not ID is equal to hash. It is a ID reference. This is. It is an ID reference. Hash is an ID reference, not ID. So that means generally an ID reference is accessed by using hash. I showed you in bottom top direction actually. Actually, this is the direction. That means some top to bottom direction it is actually. Top to bottom direction means generally you should know that in this what happening is because I written first these templates, you may feel like we are accessing the templates there actually. Situation is not that actual. The actual situation is if it is false, then what will happen? It will go to this ID and that ID will be here, right? If it is true, then it will go to this ID. This is ID actually. And that ID references are given here. So because while showing you, I first written this, you may be thinking like you are accessing them here. No, you are pointing them like this. Understood? We are not accessing them. We are pointing towards them. Right. So that is the option here. That is the option here. That means we are defining an ID and pointing towards that ID. We are accessing that ID. So that is the main intention actually. So how you are configuring them. So this is how we can show or hide the contents. Actually, we need to, yes, like event handling. We are pointing towards that, right? This we can manage. So this true false value, suppose, so I'm writing a simple div here. And we have input type is equal to checkbox. And this checkbox, so here say yes. So we have S in stock. So suppose here we defined as in stock. We will keep a label in stock. In stock, right? So here I am defining in stock one property like this. Now, whatever the value they select here, it should be stored. Then I'm using ngIf demo. Here I am creating one simple property, public, and in stock. In stock is equal to some true, a Boolean value. And we are binding with this checkbox. That means we are using ng model. Through ng model, we are accessing that in stock here. And this in stock have a Boolean value coming from checkbox that I will use here. That means I will use in stock here. In stock contains the Boolean value. In that case, what happens in our design is I will keep that in the next line. Yeah, this is all the template. And we are just displaying beside it. Just for our convenience sake, I will put a break here. Okay. You can see now in the design display if true in stock. After in stock, we will display there. After in stock, we will display the content. Yeah. So we will add a line break here. Fine. Usually our intention is to display that value there. So in stock, whether we want in a next line or in the same line, we want to display that content. So here, observe carefully now, it is initially showing in stock. That means if true. I will just put here. So an option like, I will put here an option like not display true. Here I will put an option like available. And here I display an option like out of stock. That means these are the two blocks to display. And we are using an ng template, then it will not disturb your alignments and anything. You observe here now, I am keeping this in stock. And here we are using a separate div here. And in that we are handling these templates. Our intention of using these templates not to disturb the DOM environment. That's the reason you can see here the message is displayed just beside it. And I remove this in stock, then it says out of stock, and select here, it says available. That means we are passing a Boolean value and displaying. Instead of ng template, actually, I can use here, this is template, how we can manage a template. Instead of ng template, I am using a div again here. Instead of ng template, I am using a div. These are HTML containers. These are HTML containers. These are not Angular containers. These are HTML containers. We are using HTML containers. You can use HTML containers. And when you are using HTML containers, you can see these HTML containers. It is showing both messages. Why? Because you are maintaining separate HTML containers. And these containers are not linked with this if, because that div ends here. The div ends here. That means all your conditional blocks must be inside that condition only. That means we have to keep that inside this. Inside this, we need to keep like this. That means inside the if block, we need to keep that. That keeps the DOM hierarchy. And here we are displaying and accessing. It should display those details there. That means it should access the details and display. Once observe the inspect element here. Currently, we are using general, and you see in the row, actually in the row in the div. So it has the checkbox, and you can see in stock. And the other data bindings are not displayed here. Not displayed here because when I define div, this ID reference cannot be used for divs actually. Then you have to follow HTML hierarchy. HTML hierarchy means, you know that in HTML, we need to use an ID, we need to use a name, or we need to use a class for reference. This will be a lengthy process of representing our blocks and configuring because it cannot understand that this is a reference for it. Because HTML elements are identified by using ID. We need an ID, right? So this is very lengthy process and very complex to handle. Due to that, so to avoid this all, the DOM hierarchies and all, so better we use these containers. We use a template. That means we are using a template. This reduces all the DOM manipulations we need. That means including the ID references and all. So without that, we need lot of ID references, again access them and display them. To prevent all this, we are just using this technique. That means it will get that and it has to display that value. And this time here we need to configure. We need to configure that template outside the condition. Then outside the condition, we are defining the templates. And these templates will get the value and display the value for us. They are going to get and display the value. Available or out of stock, it will display. This is not example. This is just only syntactical concept to understand how to utilize it. How do we access it? It is just displaying that option out of stock or available. The main intention of using this template is not to deal with DOM hierarchy, not to disturb the DOM alignments and hierarchy, and simply access the containers and use the containers in our logic. Without that also, last example I showed you. In the last example, we have to pass a Boolean value and access that and use it. That is a lengthy process. This is good when you are handling multiple conditions. So this is one general approach of working with ngIf. I will show you some examples. We will put these all in examples and see how to handle them, right? So how do we work with that? Now, don't you think in any real-time scenario we don't use this? Rajshekhar. So, don't you think in any real-time scenario we don't need if condition true, one set of statement should appear. If condition false, another set of statement should appear. So display one block when it is true, display another block when it is false. Don't you think you will find this in a real-time scenario? Rajshekhar Reddy. NG content. I told you, na. We are not discussing about that one by one. We will discuss difference between what is NG content and NG template. Currently, we are using NG template, na. You are more advanced than me. You suddenly went to NG content also. Right? We are only discussing NG template, and I told you that we will see the differences one by one. So what is difference between NG template, NG content, rest? Don't get so intense. Your brain will block. Okay. If you get so much intense in that concept, na, so everything will be blocked. You can't understand. Right? So no hurry. I already explained that we will see step by step all the options. I told you clearly that we are going to understand the difference between what is NG template and NG container, when to use them. In this situation, I even explain one point about NG template and NG container if you have concentrated on it. So what is the basic point I told you about NG template and NG container is a template cannot be manipulated dynamically. A template is just displayed. It can just hold the data. I think you haven't concentrated on that. And container can handle your manipulations also dynamically, manipulating the contents dynamically. Just holding the content dynamically, that is template. And container can manipulate the content, which you are going to see. Already I explained that point. You may miss that, right? So detailedly we will see difference NG template, NG container, how, because we need to put one example in that. Now the concept here is how we can switch between them, how we can switch and handle these templates and values. We will see one example for all these options, how to work with the templates and containers also. Initially, so the basic point is we are dynamically handling the blocks and we are dynamically in the blocks by using this ngIf. And this is one basic example for that. In this case, we used ng template just to hold our data with a reference, hold our data with a reference. This cannot manipulate, do any type of manipulations. Template cannot do any manipulations. Some people are disturbing with camera. Who are those people? Can you tell me? I will block them immediately. Who is those people who are disturbing with camera? Let's open them and block them. Shabbir, Kondababu. Okay. I will put you in waiting room. Okay. That will be better. So that till the concept. Acha. Fine. Whom you can't see. Right. Yes, fine. Just I kept those people there, right? Yeah, fine. Okay. Okay, let's continue. Right. So let's see the point here. What is the template issue, template problem here? Now, this is the template here is then block and else block. Okay. Shall we write this ng if also inside a template? Shall we try that? That means we will try that ng if also in that block. Okay. So we will try that. So let's try that. That means now what we will do is we will use ng template for this one. That means ng template for this one. We are using ng template. Okay. We are using ng template. Fine. Now let's go here and once refresh and see. So once we refresh and see here, and this is in stock, it is available, and it is out of stock, it is displaying. And observe the design here. So in the template, inspect in the template here. So you can see this is elements. In the elements here, you can see that this is used. If condition, for if condition, there is no div at all. For if condition, there is no div at all. Directly for if condition. So directly for if condition, you can observe there is no container. So it is just defining it. So that means we are using a template and there is no option for that template at all. That means directly after the checkbox, you got this message in stock, and after that directly available or not. There is no signs of even your condition also. I will remove that. I will remove that. Then out of stock will come. Out of stock will come. And I assign that it will display. That means it is a container and you can use this container to handle. Dynamically you can handle. But important is dynamic manipulations cannot happen for this container, which I will show you in next level. This is not manipulation. You are just turning on and off. You are just keeping some code. So I want something to manipulate inside it. I want something to manipulate inside it. Something to manipulate inside it. Like I want some iterations. I want some modifications which are not possible inside this template. It is just a holder. It is just a container. For that, I need to show you another example also. Then we can identify the difference. That means I need to explain about component ng container also. When we know about ng container, then you can understand the difference. Clearly, you can see why if is not possible, why if is possible, we can handle that. And very important is, suppose in a template, you are configuring this if, you don't need to use the directive. You don't need to use the directive with asterisk. generally we use the directive asterisk. That means here you need to know one more point is asterisk ng if is used if is used with HTML elements. So you can use property binding technique when you are working with Angular containers. That is one option. This you will see regularly in many examples, right? You can see in many examples, right? So what is the point here is you can see in many examples this. I will show you how we can handle that. We will discuss. I already told you na LG template as of now, you need to understand that it is just a container. Understood? Only container. What problems with the template we will see after discussing about ng container also. Okay, right. As of now, it is just a container which contains some content. Okay, for that we need difference between container and this. Okay, we will see that. Now, if you are using a ng template as a container, you don't need to use this ng if with asterisk. You can directly write this as ng if. Directly we can define as ng if. You can directly use that ng if here. You can directly use ng if here. And when you are working with ng if, then we have to use the else blocks, conditions, and also others by using the same technique here. That means ng if we are configuring the Boolean value. And here we are defining then when you are configuring then. So here we are using, so we are configuring then blocks, else blocks, we have to define in this way. If you are using a template dynamically. This example, I will show you in the next point, next option, we will discuss about that. So as of now, no need to worry about this. So just only one part we will see. What is that? We are currently using asterisk and ng if. We are currently using asterisk and ng if, and we are using only div. That template and containers we will discuss in another example. Next example I will show you, then you can understand clearly. As of now, this is enough, right? Up to this part is how to use a condition with the then block and else block, right? And use ng template only for holding some content. You cannot use for dynamically manipulating the content. Why doesn't suit for dynamically manipulating content? I will show you. We will see that also. For that, one more example we will see. So this example I will give just for handling this. That means property binding technique means what we have to do when you are using ng container, ng templates. We can use ng if and we can configure so a Boolean value for that. So that means we can define a Boolean value for this. This is property binding technique we use, right? One example I will show you with both of them, how to handle that. So as of now, in the initial stage, no need to worry about why we have to use a template and a container, difference between them. Why to use a template? I hope everyone is clear, because we don't want to disturb the hierarchy. And what is difference between container and template? Next level. We will discuss about that in the next level. Okay, right. Tushar, you have to check your side. Right. Okay, now let's keep one example for this. So that means a general basic syntactical example for this. What we are doing in the TS file, we are adding one property. In the if demo.component.ts file, we are adding just one property here. We are adding just one property here. Same yesterday's example. And another if demo.component.html. In this, we are handling some interactions. So in that, we are presenting this. This is same yesterday's example, but here we are dealing with a if with else block and then block. That is the basic one. This is only syntactical example. We will put this in one real world example. We will understand about that in real world example. Now here, one more important point is, if there are several blocks like that, if there are several blocks like that to display, that means here we are using only one if block, and here we are using if block and else block. There can be several blocks. There can be several blocks. If there are many blocks of options to display, then you have problem in presentation. So if there are many blocks to display, then a lot of hierarchy we have to follow. So why? Because if there are many blocks, obviously we have to use several ngIf, means several conditions. We have to configure several conditions. We have to use if then else like statements, if then else like statements. Currently we are using a then block and an else block, only one option we are doing it. And how do we handle multiple conditions? If there are multiple conditions, how we can handle? If there are multiple conditions, then you can handle that by using a switch. Instead of using this, you can use a switch. Instead of using this, you can use a switch. If there are multiple conditions, we can use a switch. Technically, we can use a switch. So what is that switch? How to use that? I will tell you. Because if there are 10 blocks to display, and out of that only one block should come according to the situation, already you know that we cannot depend on if this. Because when you are writing here, we have a if condition, and after that then, and there are several conditions. If there are several conditions, we have to actually use ng if else. Multiple conditions we have to use. To avoid that multiple conditions, what we can do is, so we can use technically a simple switch case. Based on the switch case, we can manage. So let's see how we can handle that. So let's design, let's see what is the basic syntax of multiple conditions. Multiple conditions, how do we manage them, right? This is if. If you want to implement in one example, I will show you. Means first we will put in one example here. Let's take yesterday's example. This all I will remove the row. Means let's keep this in example and see that first. Okay. Now this is our yesterday's example. In yesterday's example, so we are clicking here. So show preview, and it is showing the preview, and hide preview, it is hiding the preview. So when there is no preview, then I need to tell the user that there is a preview. You can click show preview for the preview. That means I don't want to keep this area empty. I need to keep their preview here. So then what we will do is, in yesterday's example, so we are just using a simple condition. In yesterday's example, we are just using a condition. That is in the condition show image is false. If show image is true, what should happen? If show image is false, what should happen? We just have this option. Now, if it is false, then I want an alternative block to come actually. Then in the design, here we are displaying the photo. This is one image. What we will do is, now here in this div, we will keep two templates now. So this is the div. Okay. Below the div, I will keep two templates here. We will create two templates here. So how do we, two dynamic containers. So ng template. Okay. This template is having a reference hash. This is having a reference. I am just giving a reference here as this is then block. That is the reference. And another template. This is another template. We are keeping another template, and this is else block. So this is a else block. Okay. Now, if true, then an image should display there. If true, an image should display there. Image should get the photo and display the photo. If true, that image should display with that height and width. Okay. If false here, that means if it is not there, then also an image should come, but there is no image source mentioned. Without image source, we will put an alt text, alternative text. So here, click preview. Click preview. This is what alternative, click preview. That is the alternative text we need to display there. That is click preview, alternative text to display there. Now observe carefully here. If in this div, we are adding if and a semicolon, and the show image is setting a Boolean value and semicolon. And here we are defining then block. We have to access the then block, and else we have to access the else block. I'm adding this scenario here. That means if user is not clicking the preview button, then you see there is a text click preview. By default, there is a text click preview. And when user clicks on that show preview, then the image will come and it will hide. And when it is hiding, it says click preview. That means there is an image preview, and you can display in any way. Whatever you want, you can display there. Suppose I am defining here border. So I am defining border is equal to 1, and you can see that it says that there is a place for an image there. So, and that image border, okay, this is not defined, no border, because we are defining alternative text now. Some alternative text is there. If you give alternate text, we can't use border actually. Border is only for displaying the block of the width and height for that particular image. You can see border comes here. So you can just put an empty border. Better instead of empty border, so we will put an alternative text here, alt, and alternative text here as so click preview, preview. That means I don't want to keep it empty. I don't want to keep that place empty. I want one alternative one to come if they are not clicking that preview. That means here the preview will come here. So I click show preview, then the preview will come. And hide preview, then again it will be displayed. The same yesterday's example. Only one point here is we are just having an alternative one to display if that is not satisfied. Just same yesterday's example, we have an alternative one to display. And for that we are in block, we are defining this. The reason we can use then block and else block. If there are 4 or 5 options and you want to display only one out of them, then this is very risky. Then better what you can do is we can go with switch. Switch, you know the condition of the switch. What switch will do is out of multiple blocks, it will display only the block that is necessary for you. So that is done easily by using a switch. For that, we need to understand how the switch cases are used in the Angular UI, how do we work with the switch case and work with the switch case? Initially, this is one basic example. This is one basic example of working with if. Yesterday we already discussed this. Today we discussed about some important option, that is how do we manage this? How do we manage this? By using the templates. How do we configure that using the templates, and how you can define the else blocks and then block? What is the purpose of then and else block? So the same previous example, this is general example, and another example is the same previous example, if demo component.ts. In that we are having this logic, this all logic yesterday we designed, and we learned how to add and configure that here. And one more is we need to add if demo.component.html. In that the design, this is all the design. So here only one additional thing. What we have done is, so we are using a template and we are displaying an alternative block if the condition is not satisfied. If the condition is not satisfied, we can define an alternative block. So that is through else, right? We have two templates to display. One displays the original photo, another displays just a preview. So with alternative text. You can put any div. It's not mandatory that you have to put an image. You can put just a message there saying that click preview, right? Just to show that there will be a preview of an image, we are using IMG. We can just put a normal heading or a message there saying that there will be preview, or we can display some other text, some other image, another image. It says that you click preview, you can view the original, right? That we can alternatively manage. But this is the basic option of how to handle the conditions in the client side by using ngIf. Now multiple conditions can be handled by using another directive. So for that we have to use another Angular structural directive, that is ngSwitch. The purpose of ngSwitch and how to use this ngSwitch with the case. So various cases. We will see how to implement in a real world example. And once you know switch and ng for, then you will able to understand the difference between the template and container, right? There are so many options. We will discuss those differences. But for that, we need to first understand other two directives. How to use ngSwitch and implement in a real world example. We will see that in our next session. Tomorrow we will continue with this, right? This is just yesterday's concept. We continued with conditions. And tomorrow we will continue with this and see how to use a switch. With that, we will implement one real world example. First, we are learning the syntax. Then we will learn real world examples, right?